Funding for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by ODS Health Plan, the group medical plan that meets the needs of more than 600,000 Oregonians by providing a broad range of medical and dental coverage and responsive service.
Good evening. I'm Jim Lara in Washington.
And I'm Robert McNeil in New York. After the news summary this Monday evening, we examine the medical and nutrition problems faced in Somalia once U.S. troops secure the delivery of food. Then our regional editors react to the decision to give the U.S. military the Somalia mission.
Funding for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by PepsiCo. PepsiCo. Part of helping the world live and communicate better is keeping it well informed. That's why funding for the NewsHour is also provided by AT&T and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
U.S. warplanes began flights over Somalia today, but on the ground, the violence that brought them there continued. The first U.S. Marines are expected to begin landing early Wednesday to secure the capital, Mogadishu. They will also secure the airfield at the inland town of Baidoa. Mogadishu was quiet today, but relief workers said 48 people were killed and 50 injured in Baidoa in fierce fighting between rival clans. Navy F-14 fighters were clearly visible in the skies over Mogadishu. Pentagon officials said they were on reconnaissance missions. A U.S. cargo plane landed near Mogadishu carrying air traffic controllers who will help guide in planes when the deployment begins. The U.S. Special Envoy also arrived to meet with leaders of the warring clans. He had this to say.
This is a humanitarian mission. I'm here first as the President's representative to demonstrate very clearly that it's a humanitarian mission. It is not meant to involve military action. We hope that military action can be avoided. So we're here in support of relief to provide hope to Somalia.
We'll have more on this story right after the news summary. Jim?
The Supreme Court today let stand a state law that requires counseling and a 24-hour waiting period before an abortion. A federal appeals court had rejected a challenge to the Mississippi law in August, saying the Supreme Court had upheld almost identical regulations in Pennsylvania. In other action today, the court went along with another appeals court decision that would force the government to explain the rationale for banning gays in the military. The case involved a Los Angeles woman who was discharged from the Army Reserve in 1986 after revealing she was a lesbian. Her suit against the government must now be heard. The Supreme Court also refused to reinstate the Iran-Contra conviction of former National Security Advisor John Poindexter. Lower courts ruled Poindexter's immunized testimony to Congress had been improperly used against him.
The government of India announced a ban on fundamentalist religious groups today after 200 people died in religious violence. Riots broke out across the country after Hindu militants destroyed an ancient Muslim mosque on Sunday. Peter Sharp of Independent Television News reports.
The violence that swept India throughout the day was as widespread as it was predictable. Although the army had been placed on alert since yesterday's attack at Ayodhya, it had proved unable to cope with the level of communal violence reignited by the militant Hindus' destruction of the 16th century mosque. There had been reported stonings, bus burnings, and attacks on police stations all across the country. In Bombay, 40 people were shot dead as Hindus clashed with Muslims. There was violence, too, in Ayodhya, where militant Hindus yesterday stormed the mosque, reducing it to rubble. The militants say it stood on the birthplace of the legendary warrior King Lord Rama. And the resulting outrage and anger of Muslims was not confined to India's borders. In neighboring Pakistan, crowds burnt an effigy of the Indian Prime Minister in the street, while others destroyed a Hindu shrine on the outskirts of Rawalpindi. There were similar demonstrations in Peshawar and Lahore.
The Muslim mosque destroyed on Sunday has been at the center of political turmoil in India for 3 years. Violence surrounding Hindu attempts to move it has killed 2,500 people over that period.
3 Israeli Army reservists were shot to death by Palestinian gunmen in the occupied Gaza Strip today. The government responded by banning Palestinians from entering Israel beginning tomorrow. Responsibility for the attack was claimed by a Muslim extremist group opposed to the Mideast peace talks. Those talks reconvened in Washington today. Israel's chief negotiator denounced the ambush, calling it a stab in the heart. He also criticized a Palestinian decision to cut its delegation from 14 to 4 members. The Palestinians said they did it to protest the terms of Israel's proposal for self-rule in the occupied territories.
Trans World Airlines today announced it had resolved a billion-dollar pension dispute that had forced it into bankruptcy. The agreement splits TWA's ownership between its creditors and its unionized employees. The creditors will cancel claims totaling $1 billion in exchange for 55% of the company. The unionized employees accept wage and benefit cuts and gain 45% control. In addition, TWA chairman and current owner Carl Icahn will provide $200 million to keep the airline operating.
8 men are trapped in a coal mine in southwest Virginia after an explosion early this morning. Authorities said they were unsure if the men were still alive. Dangerous levels of methane gas have made rescue attempts difficult. A company employee said he believed the men may have barricaded themselves in the mine to retain as much oxygen as possible.
That's our summary of the news. Now it's on to the medical and nutrition problems in Somalia and how newspaper editors react to the mission. We lead tonight with a look at the biggest challenge confronting the U.S. troops who are about to start landing in Somalia: how to stop the cycle of starvation that has already killed an estimated 300 Somalis this year. Alex Thompson of Independent Television News has this report on the situation in the capital city of Mogadishu.
Although much of Somalia is peaceful and green after the recent rains, the need for food aid at the pockets of starvation is still urgent.
The majority of the food that has left the port, that has managed to leave the port, has been looted. There are thousands of starving people still in areas like Baidoa, Bardera, etc. We're just not able to do the job under the present constraints.
And just south of the capital, a sign of those constraints: the laborious unloading of food by hand from a Red Cross ship moored just offshore. And all this to avoid the main port and its attendant looters. Up at Mogadishu port itself, there are 2 warehouses still containing over 10,000 tons of donated wheat, sorghum and millet from all around the world. Outside, a snaking barricade of industrial containers protects the food aid convoys from the possibility of incoming gunfire. Within the city itself, the impending U.S.-led operation has caused an economic ripple. Prices rising, but the U.S. dollar plunging 20% in the past 4 days on an overloaded market. And from some, outright skepticism of U.S. intentions.
There's been so many contradictory statements from the Americans that it's really that's the worry, the big worry, that nobody seems to know what the hell it is they're about to do. You know, I mean, you don't bring in something like 40,000, 50,000 strong military force here just to escort food. I mean, that's not, I mean, I don't buy it. No, I don't think most Somalis do buy it.
Most people here seem to think that once this military operation's underway, it'll deliver the food to where it's needed and do so relatively quickly. At an airstrip 30 miles west of Mogadishu, a US C-130 transport plane lands the first American soldiers, believed to be air traffic controllers, the advance party of what the Americans call Operation Restore Hope. But first, into the technicals, or truck-mounted machine guns, the only available transport into the capital, and it's in the hands of the gunmen widely responsible for looting the food in the first place. And over the capital, Mogadishu, US planes apparently on reconnaissance in the first area they're likely to move into. Locals looked on with a mixture of skepticism and some enthusiasm.
The Americans are helping the Somali people, the refugees, and that's good.
We are waiting now, and just we will see what they become.
The aid agencies believe these technicals, the militias of the various warring clans, will scatter widely when the Americans land, mostly avoiding confrontation, but mostly keeping hold of their weapons.
Assuming those guns are silenced by the U.S. military presence, the steps between securing order in Somalia and rescuing people from famine are not simple. We're joined now by 2 people who have extensive experience dealing with famine relief. Dr. Lincoln Chen is the director of the Center for Population and Development Studies at Harvard University. He's also chairman of the Department of International Health at Harvard School of Public Health. He was a relief worker in Bangladesh for 15 years in the 1970s and 80s. Mary Moran is a public health nurse from New York Hospital's Cornell Medical Center. She just returned from 3 weeks in Somalia, where she worked with village leaders securing water sources and other basic necessities. Ms. Moran, if the U.S.-led force is successful in restoring order, so food can actually reach the needy, I gather that's really only the beginning of the problem. Could you describe the dimensions of the nutrition problem as you understand it?
In the northern part of Somalia, which is bordering Ethiopia and Kenya, the malnutrition levels there range from less than 70th percentile, which is a very severely malnourished people, to people who are just mildly malnourished.
Explain what those percentiles mean. What is a mildly nourished person, and what does 70% mean?
70% malnourished person is a severely malnourished person whose chances of survival or recovery are very, very slim. It entails intensive feeding, which means liquid feeding, small amounts, frequently, like every hour, for several weeks, if not months. The children who are affected with this level of malnutrition are usually under 5, and their death rate is usually very, very high.
Uh-huh. And what is an 80% malnourished person and a 90% malnourished?
An 80% malnourished person is somebody who has reached the 80% of his height for his age. He's not exactly the proper weight or the proper height for his age, but he is within 80% of
So
that.
he's somebody who's been chronically malnourished over a long period, just not had enough to eat.
Exactly, and
Right.
the same applies to the 90%.
But the 71 is suffering from some kind of acute malnourishment, is that right? I mean,
it's prolonged, chronic malnourishment.
Prolonged, so it's a question of how long it's prolonged.
Exactly.
I see. And we're now also joined by Barbara Smith, who is a nurse who was the emergency response coordinator for the International Rescue Committee's medical program in Somalia, and she recently returned from there also. Ms. Smith, how would you describe the nutrition problem?
The nutrition problem is widespread. It not only entails what are usually considered the vulnerable groups, like under 5 children or pregnant women, it entails everybody. It's clear that everybody has sustained, if not years, many, many months of almost no food.
So what proportion of the population would you estimate are at this very acute level that Ms. Moran has just described, this 70% malnutrition?
It depends how you define the population. The military people are not malnourished. However, the refugees, the displaced, are, I would say, up to 90% of them are malnourished. Before this, what has ever been recorded is 70% has been malnourished, but I did not see one person who was well-nourished while I was in Somalia, unless they were in the military.
Dr. Chen, looking at this, just the nutrition problem for a moment, we'll come to the medical one later. How does the challenge or the problem facing the UN forces led by the U.S. look compared to other disasters that you're familiar with?
Oh, this is really a medical emergency. The nutritional insult has been both chronic and very, very severe in the acute phase. I do feel, however, that many of the severely malnourished can be saved. We have the technologies in terms of food and medical care that could save, I think the clinical studies show, up to 80% of the children that are severely malnourished. So if the food and medical care can get into those who need it, I think that we can make a major humanitarian impact.
Does that mean that we just have to accept the fact that with all the best will in the world and the speediest restoration of order, that something like 20% of those who are severely malnourished will not make it anyway? Is that...
I think of the severely malnourished, that's something we're going to have to accept. But I believe most of the data coming in comes from the food distribution and feeding centers, mostly in urban areas. We need to learn more about what's happening to the populations that are not coming forward. Either they're not able to make it because of the conflict or the nutritional situation. So I would see as a very early priority, once civil order is restored, that rapid assessments be made to find out where are the vulnerable population beyond the feeding centers.
What is your observation on this, Ms. Moran, that we're able to see, and we frequently see on television, the people who have come to these feeding centers who are there? I mean, how representative are they as far as the information you got about the whole population out in the country?
I think they are merely a small representation because, just as Dr. Chen has said, there are several hundreds of thousands of people who are too weak to walk or live too far away from the feeding centers.
And we haven't really seen them yet.
They are not seen. They have not been seen.
So part of the, after the order is restored, part of it is going to be just to find out how bad the problem is because we don't know yet.
Exactly.
Ms. Smith, do you have an observation on that?
Yeah, what I would just add to that is what people have seen on the television is as good as it gets. The majority of the people are either walking toward the centers or are just laying where they have become too weak to move, and that is what the condition of most of the people. They're dying all by themselves, either under a stick or just along the roadside.
Ms. Smith, you heard what Dr. Chen said, that you can expect that 80%, only about 80% of those who are severely malnourished may survive in the case of children. What would you say about that? I mean, how easily is it to reach a point where nothing is going to save them?
It's hard to say in a condition like Somalia. The people who are alive are kind of existing in a superhuman state. I know most of the people who are listening to me could not survive what the Somalis have. I don't think we can put a certain percentage on who will or who won't survive. I do know there are tens of thousands of children and adults, it's not just the children, who are laying there unable to even move their eyes. And their bodies can no longer absorb nutrients, and they will die. This will be thousands of people. Percentage-wise, I don't know.
So how do you treat, Ms. Moran, how do you treat, without intensive care units or all the things we have in the West, how do you treat these severely malnourished people with what you can do there on the ground?
With what you can do in Somalia,
yes.
You need intensive feeding, that is liquid feeding, highly nutritious feeding.
Is that intravenous feeding, or is that...
Usually it's through a nasogastric tube into the child's stomach. It can be intravenous also. But those services are not available in most of the areas of Somalia. So, just as Ms. Smith has said, we're going to lose millions of people.
You mean even if we get there with the food, we're going to lose lots of people? Is that what you're saying?
Even if we get there with the food,
so,
still thousands of people are going to die.
Yeah.
Because they are too far gone.
But you get there, and how do you start helping those people with what you can do in place right there?
There are several aspects that one has to attack, actually. First of all, you need seeds to get into the people so that they are in place for the next growing season, which is in February or March. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you need to start with feeding centers now to try and save as many people as you possibly can. Many are going to die, and that is a fact. There is nothing that can be done about it. Their nutritional status, their ability, the person's ability to absorb any nutritional food is just not there. Just as Ms. Smith said, they do not have the strength to move their eyes.
If you brought them into the most modern hospital in the West, that would still be the case, too?
Most likely, yes.
It would be. So it's not a case of a lack of technology reaching them, or a lack of modern facilities. It's just that they're too far gone.
I would say, my own clinical experience would be to say that they are just too far gone.
I see. So yes, Dr. Chen.
I was just going to comment that I think a very high priority should be placed on prevention. I think that, for example, a lot of the deaths are due to infection from diarrhea, measles, malaria perhaps, and major efforts should be made to not only provide nutritional prevention, but also medical prevention through clean water sanitation and simple infection control. These often are as equally important in causing the mortality as the sheer starvation.
What do you see, Ms. Smith, having just been there, as the medical problem? We've been discussing the nutrition problem. What do you see as the medical problem?
Well, once the people have enough food to survive, they will almost all of them be quite ill. And the diseases that are usually present in Somalia were just mentioned. Malaria, there's also a lot of tuberculosis. Bloody diarrhea is a big problem because there is no clean water in the area that we're talking about. The people who have access to water, let's say in Bardera, the water is so filthy. It is brown, it is opaque, it is now floating with bodies that if you drink it, you will become sick. So that as people get fed and survive, we will have to treat the water source, certainly, but we will have to treat their bloody diarrhea. We have to treat their malaria and other diseases, respiratory, measles. There's a list of them.
So is the medical problem as big as the nutrition problem?
Oh, absolutely. In my view, there is, because after you come out of this starvation and you have passed the brink of survival, you will be very ill. It takes a very long time to recover in the best of circumstances from these diseases. I unfortunately have had malaria and others myself, and it takes weeks, if not months, to get better from them. And the Somali people will need equal treatment and equal time to be healthy again.
Ms. Moran, what do you see as the medical need there?
I think, just as Dr. Chinna said and Ms. Smith, we need prevention. We need two things to go on at the same time. People need to get food in there. Also, we need to start preventive measures. Cleaning up the water is probably the most beneficial service that could be given to the people.
In other words, there is water there, but it would need to be treated.
Yes. We have two big rivers in Somalia, which is not the case in parts of Sudan or other parts of Africa. And those rivers could be certainly tapped for to deliver food, to deliver water to the local towns.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Chen, you've had experience of this in another big disaster. But you didn't have the problem of restoring order in Bangladesh. Once order is restored, how is it organized to deal with all these problems at once? And who is equipped to do that?
I think the first question is the order. I hope that the order is not only simply confined to the urban centers, but that there is a capacity for the relief work through restoration of order more broadly in the countryside to reach out to those who may not be coming forward. I think that's first. I think secondly, efforts need to be undertaken now to incorporate the planning for the future, moving from relief to rehabilitation to development, and to engage the Somalians, the families, the local communities, and many of the services that need to be provided. I get upset when I see some of the relief work which the workers simply just pass out things to people as passive agents. I think, for example, many of the Somalians could conceivably be the workers, including the mothers themselves, in providing the early phases of this relief to build up their capacities.
We referred, Ms. Smith, we referred earlier to the clan clashes there. Somalia, even when it was peacefully governed, was governed by these clans. Are they going to be able to be engaged in helping this effort, or is that going to be an obstacle in making this work, from your experience there?
I think it will be both. Certainly, the clan system will have to be respected and organized into the relief effort. An example of that is that in Bardera, the nomads are not allowed to enter the town of Bardera, and so clans separate themselves. This has a lot of implications for how relief can be distributed. But if people think that there's going to be a very small, safe zone where food is going to be passed out and everybody's going to come and live together and be, quote-unquote, relieved together, I think you're asking for a lot of trouble, especially as people get stronger.
You mean it has to be broken down and relief has to be given within a clan? Otherwise, it simply won't be done, is that?
I believe that some sort of agreement has to be made with the clans of how this will work, how fighting can be prevented. It's another preventative measure that needs to be taken. Another medical thing about the relief effort is that when you get too many people close together, you have disease, you have death, and this is what happened in Baidoa. This is part of the reason there was so much, the high death rate in Baidoa, is because to get any food, you had to show up in the town. And of course, the population just zoomed very high, and no one was able to live with any space in between them, and then the illness started.
Mm-hmm. Well, Barbara Smith, Mary Moran, and Lincoln Chen, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Still to come on the NewsHour tonight, our regular panel of regional editors and commentators react to the Somalia troops' decision. But first, this is Pledge Week on public television, and we are taking a short break now so your public television station can ask for your support. That support helps keep programs like this on the air.
Hello, everybody. I'm Margie Boulay from the Oregonian. This presidential election year, Robert McNeil and Jim Lehrer were just where you wanted them to be on the story. If the NewsHour played a significant part in your understanding of the issues and the personalities in this year's campaign, let us know right now by calling with your pledge. Just go to your telephone if you're a big fan of this news program, as I am, and call in Portland 245-2345. from anywhere else in our viewing area, which includes all of Oregon, and you folks in southern Washington, call us toll-free at 1-800-245-2346. They're starting to ring already. We'd like to get everybody's phone busy. Even if you're already a member, we would like you to call us right now. Support public television's commitment to solid, in-depth news coverage with an additional pledge. We won't turn you away, I promise. You already know what the NewsHour is worth to you and in your everyday life. Now turn that knowledge of the worth into a cash pledge. By the way, we want you to know that tonight we're offering something which I find quite fascinating, and I'm sure a lot of you will as well. This is a new book, just been published this year. JFK, Reckless Youth. Evidently, it's the first in what will be a series of biographies of JFK. It's been extremely well reviewed. And if you call now with a pledge of $150 to OPB, we will send this book to you. Make a wonderful Christmas gift, even to yourself. So call right now. Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Lewis. If you're a fan of the McNeil-era NewsHour, your membership at OPB is the least you can do, but I hope you'll do more than just the least you can do tonight. Phone a more generous pledge to Oregon Public Broadcasting. Join us with a $60 pledge. You do so, you can choose one of two premiums. One is an Oregon Field Guide 1993 calendar featuring Oregon scenics and wildlife. Your other choice is an OPB etched coffee mug. This is not just any coffee mug. It has a design that's sandblasted in. It really looks like it's handmade. Call us with a $60 pledge and make your choice. And use your credit card when you call 245-2345 or our toll-free number 1-800-245-2346. It's easy, quick, and so convenient.
Show us you believe in member-supported OPB. If you tune into public TV just for news and information, and we know a lot of you do, it would certainly be worth $35 a year to you, minimum. But there is so much more in addition to the news. Drama, nature shows, music, children's programming. It's all right here on this channel, and the quality is uniformly excellent. If you watch regularly, I know you'll agree. Maybe McNeil-era is the high point of your viewing day, but as we said, there's so much else besides, and you don't even have to change channels. Makes a membership in OPB sound even better than it did before, doesn't it? Well, we hope you agree, and we look forward to hearing from you right now.
Folks, we've all taken our swipes at public television's fundraising over the years, including myself, but it's no laughing matter. I've been a member of public television's family for over 16 years, and no one knows better than I just what an important part it plays in our lives. I mean, where else can a comedian like myself come into your homes and totally shatter your illusion? So remember, when it comes to support, it has to be you. It has to be you. Get up from your chair and prove that you care. Your call will get through. For nobody else can keep us alive. Without your check, we cannot survive. It has to be you. No one but you. It has to be you.
245-2345 is our pledge line in the Portland area, and it's 1-800-245-2346 from anywhere else, toll-free. That call is your access to a membership in OPB. If you're already a member and you're renewing, here's a suggestion. Increase your contribution to $60 this time around. If you do, you'll get a thank you for your generosity in the form of this OPB etched coffee mug. Now, the number to call in Portland is 245-2345. From anywhere else in our viewing area, all of Oregon and southern Washington, call toll-free 1-800-245-2346.
At any level of contribution, starting at just $35 a year, you receive two excellent benefits to your OPB membership. One of those is a year's subscription to our program guide called Oregon Focus. The second is the use of our membership card. We call it a ticket to Oregon. It brings you discounts at events all across the state. At higher levels of contribution, you get all those things and more.
Being a member of Oregon Public Broadcasting is one of those things that we can all do together. Now, we might live in places that are hundreds of miles apart. We might have different kinds of jobs, and we may not think the same about politics, but what we have in common is that we all enjoy public television. We all know how valuable it is, and that's enough to pull us together. When you think of it that way, OPB membership might be even more important than you think.
I'm going to give you those numbers once again because we have probably 10 operators still available to take your call. In Portland, 245-2345. If just 10 of you go to your phone right now and call that, we'll get everybody busy. Elsewhere in Oregon and southern Washington, wherever you're watching, call us toll-free, 1-800-245-2346. OPB is serious about bringing you the news and information you need to make important decisions. The commitment is there, but there's another essential element in all of this, and that is money. McNeil-Lehrer is unquestionably one of the best programs on OPB, and frankly, it's also one of the most expensive for us to acquire. That's right. It doesn't come to us free. We have to pay money to get that program to show it to you. That means OPB's seriousness about presenting the show has to be backed up with cash, and that's where viewer support comes into the picture. So that's why we're here this evening. In Portland, call 245-2345. Elsewhere in Oregon and southern Washington, wherever you're watching, we have a toll-free number, 1-800-245-2346.
We will remind you that this Sunday at 3 p.m. we are going to be presenting the very much talked about American Experience series, The Kennedys, here on OPB. We will present it Sunday afternoon beginning at 3 in its entirety. Now, right now, if you're serious about helping OPB, call us with a $150 pledge and get your copy of JFK, Restless Youth by Nigel Hamilton. If you can't quite do that, a pledge of just $60 will bring you either an OPB coffee mug or an Oregon Field Guide calendar. The choice is yours, and we do encourage an above-average pledge for an above-average news program, the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour.
We're just about to rejoin the NewsHour for the rest of the program, but we'd like to ask you one last time to pick up the telephone. Again, in Portland, 245-2345, or toll-free, 1-800-245-2346 from anywhere else in Oregon. Our phone volunteers tonight are from the Oregon Historical Society or the Pacific Crest Wind Ensemble. They just had a performance on Saturday night. They'll be here all evening to take your calls. Now, back to McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour.
If you'd prefer to mail us your contribution, here's the address. Oregon Public Broadcasting Foundation, Post Office Box 4373, Portland 97208. However, if you'd like to call in your contribution, our phone volunteers will be glad to take your pledge. In Portland, 245-2345. Elsewhere in our viewing area, 1-800-245-2346.
Now, how sending U.S. troops to Somalia is playing around the United States. The answers come from 5 of our regular panel of editors and columnists: Clarence Page of the Chicago Tribune, Cynthia Tucker of the Atlanta Constitution, Gerald Warren of the San Diego Union Tribune, Lee Cullum of the Dallas Morning News, and Erwin Knoll of the Progressive Magazine in Madison, Wisconsin. Lee, is support for the Somalia action holding in Texas?
Yes, Jim, I think it is. My newspaper, the Dallas Morning News, supports the action. They want the mission clearly defined, of course, but they will have an editorial tomorrow saying, let's not worry what the government is going to be like in Somalia 6 months from now. Let's worry about averting the tragedy today. As far as the people that I run into in Dallas, I find a number of people for it. Some, as always, are concerned about putting our troops in harm's way. But in general, I think the action has been well received.
Jerry Warren, your city is has a large military population. Do your folks see this as a legitimate use of U.S. military power?
They do, Jim. They question the future. How many of these are we going to see in succession? Not only are we a military, have a large military presence here, but all of the ships that are off Somalia right now are San Diego-based ships. And the Marines, which will be going in there, are all San Diego County-based Marines.
Just up the road is the first Marine
Exactly,
Division. Right.
Exactly. And the 1,800 that are on the ships that will go in on early Wednesday are also Camp Pendleton Marines. So it's really an important story for San Diego County. And as I said earlier, it is supported here. You hear some voices saying, well, if we can take care of hunger in Somalia, why can't we take care of our own hunger? And that's understandable, but by and large, the support is here.
Cynthia, what's your reading of the support in your area, in Georgia, Atlanta?
I think the same thing is true. That's true in Texas and California. I think in general, people are very supportive of the action. Atlanta has a large number of African immigrants, not necessarily Somalis, but a lot of Liberians, a lot of Ethiopians, people who are eager, I think, to see the United States intervene with humanitarian aid in Somalia. This is also the city that has Jimmy Carter's Presidential Library, and the Carter Center has been dedicated for some time now to trying to bring civil wars to a close in African countries and all over the world, and the President has done a lot of work that reminds people that these are the kinds of efforts that the United States should be involved in. So I think that in general, people in Atlanta and throughout Georgia are supportive, though like everywhere, I think they're concerned that there be a defined mission and that American troops deliver the food and be able to get back in a reasonably short period of time.
Erwin Knoll, how would you define the mission? And what is your reaction to that mission?
Well, the lack of definition is one of the things that troubles me about the mission. I listened to your medical experts a minute ago, or a few minutes ago, and that troubled me even more because it seems to me a hugely inappropriate task for the military, for the Marines, to be undertaking. If indeed this exercise is going to cost $300, $400 million, maybe twice that much, because often they do cost twice as much as we're told at the outset, I suspect there are better ways to spend the money to help those people. We've all seen those horrible images of starving Somalis. But I don't think we're going to see pictures of Marines solving that problem. And if indeed we're going to make a massive investment, what about all the things we haven't tried? We haven't tried peaceful mediation in that country. We haven't tried sending in food by other ports than Mogadishu, where there isn't the kind of conflict that is centered on what was the capital of Somalia when it was a country. It just seems to me when there's trouble in the world, we reach automatically for the military solution, whether it's appropriate or not.
Terrence Page, you share that concern with Erwin?
I share that concern, and everything that my fellow editors are saying around the country, I can say is happening in Chicago. The same sense. What's really remarkable here is, for one thing, our country is remarkably unified in the belief that we need to be doing this. This is a good thing to do.
Something or this?
We need to be going in there to help the food delivery. The problem is not lack of food. It's the food has been rotting on the docks because they haven't been able to get it to the people who need it because of these bandits running around and the so-called warlords and the violence that is going on as a result of the anarchy that has come about because we didn't do a year ago what Erwin Knoll was talking about. I mean, a year ago, after the Barre regime fell in January of last year, the United Nations was being begged by the leadership that remained in Somalia, please come in and help us. 6 months ago, the United States could have done this, and we could have saved maybe 300,000 lives. That has happened now. The situation has risen to this state of anarchy. And I think right now, we do need to send in the Marines. We do need to send in military troops to try to stabilize the situation enough to get the food delivered. But then comes the end game, and what we are all expressing concern about, what next? The United Nations needs to come in there and stabilize Somalia.
And take the country over, you mean?
Take it over. We don't want colonialism. We hate that word.
Isn't that colonialism?
It's a new form of colonialism, appropriate for a new world order, or forget that term, the post-Cold War world. It is a colonialism that is imposed by worldwide consensus through the United Nations, the third world included, to help to relieve what is now a state of anarchy. This is a new role for the United States military, a new role for the UN, but I think it's a role the UN might as well get used to as we now embark on the post-Cold War world.
Yeah. Do you see it that same way, Lee, that this is really the first big move of the post-Cold War world, the New World Order, whatever in the world it's called, and this is a step, but it's a big step in the long haul?
Yes, I do, Jim. You know, there's been a great debate at the UN about when it's proper to intervene. Heretofore, the thinking has been that you can intervene only between states, when there is discord between states. But now the trouble is within a state. And I think the UN is absolutely right to intervene. I think this is actually a new consciousness. I think the generation that saw the Holocaust is in leadership right now, followed closely, and this is not original with me, by the generation that came to maturity in the first bunch of the Peace Corps. They want to see a peaceful world, and they want to be helpful in a new and almost revolutionary way.
Erwin, you raised the question about, well, but this is military action. If you don't use your military, what would be a better use of using a military than this kind of thing?
I'm not sure there is a good use for the military, but I'd like to point out, when Lee talks about a new concept in international affairs, it's a very limited and contradictory concept. There are people starving in Haiti, trying desperately to get out of that poverty-racked country, and we send them back because they're economic refugees. We don't care whether they starve in Haiti. We do care whether they starve in Somalia. I'd like to know more about the geopolitical considerations that make one place okay for people to starve in, and another place one where we have to send in the Marines.
Cynthia, he's got a point, doesn't he? If you're against starvation, don't you have to be against it everywhere?
Indeed, and I think that is the very problem that will greet Bill Clinton as soon as he enters office. One of the remarkable things I think we're seeing now is that there are countries in turmoil all over the world that will be asking the United States to intervene and asking the United Nations to intervene. That's a relatively new thing, particularly in developing countries. Previously, they were very suspicious of intervention by Western nations. I think we're going to see a very different thing. I think that Liberia may ask us to intervene. And there are already some who are saying, well, if we're going to send the Marines into Somalia, we need to do something about Haiti. Maybe we need to send troops in there. And I think what Bill Clinton is going to have to do very quickly is set criteria for the nations where we will intervene, and also establish other methods of operating. I share many of Erwin's concerns about the things that have not been tried in Somalia. But I think we have to send in the Marines and also attempt to do some of those other things, including getting the United Nations in to try to set up some kind of working government.
Jerry,
can I point out something?
Yeah, sure.
Before we start sending the Marines into Haiti, we should remember that the Haitian government does not want us to come in there. One good excuse we have to go into Somalia is that there's no government. It is total anarchy. With Bosnia, the Bosnians would love to have us come in to help save them from the Serbs. Well, we're not about to do that right now because it could be another quagmire. If we do want to go into a country like Haiti, the third world is going to react harshly to that, because then we've got carte blanche to go into any other country run by a dictatorship. That's a big, tall order.
But Jerry Warren, I take it from what you said earlier that the folks in San Diego aren't sure those standards that Cynthia was talking about, or Erwin Noel was talking about, that the whole country knows what it's going to take to trigger U.S. military action. We don't really have any right now, right?
Oh, I think that's true, but we have to remember one thing, and I think my colleagues have overlooked this. The United States Marine Corps is not looking for countries to go into for humanitarian colonialism. They're not looking for that at all. The Marines are going into Somalia because the United Nations was unable to solve that situation through diplomacy and through pressure and through other means. So that's why the United States stepped up, as the United States always has since the end of World War II. I do think some criteria have to be outlined, but it can't be just by the United States. It must be by the United Nations with U.S. involvement.
You know, Jerry, the other night, Senator Brown of Colorado, one of the few members of Congress who has questioned this action vociferously, at least, he said there is a real danger that if things start going wrong in Somalia, let's say that the clans that we were in our piece earlier, let's say they don't run to the countryside. Let's say they start shooting at those First Division Marines. Senator Brown says that if the going gets rough, he's afraid that the Congress and the people of the United States will cut and run just like they did in Vietnam.
Well, I don't think so, because I don't think the threat to our military will be as great as it was in Vietnam. That's a poor country in which to carry out guerrilla warfare. They can carry out hit-and-run attacks and certainly drive-by shootings, which they're noted for in Somalia. But I think the sizable force that will be sent in this next week or so will be able to pacify the situation.
Erwin, how do you feel about that? As you measure the support that the American people have for this, is it only if it's just a humanitarian effort and nobody shoots back and everything's fine, or do you think it would crumble immediately if things got rough?
I don't know if it would crumble immediately, but I think it would erode. We're all carried by the momentum of those terrible images of starving Somalis, and everyone who has any human feeling at all has to be moved by that. But that kind of emotional response isn't going to be sustained for a terribly long time if there's nothing to show for it. And I'm not sure how much there will be to show for it. Let me take off on one more point Jerry Warren made when he said that only because the United Nations hasn't been able to solve this problem are the Marines going in. Well, there are an awful lot of problems in the world and more coming that the United Nations will not be able to solve. And if we're going to respond the way we have this time, it's going to be one very busy U.S. Marine Corps.
Jerry?
Well, it may be. That's yet to be worked out. Remember that military might, regardless of what Erwin thinks, is able to do something in Somalia. It wouldn't be in Bosnia. It would, as Clarence said, it would be terrible in Haiti at this moment until the government, or unless the government invites us in. But in Somalia, it can work. And so you can't really classify all of these basket case countries as the same situation.
Yeah. Lee, some people have also said, Erwin mentioned it in passing in another context, that there wouldn't be any U.S. Marines going to shore Wednesday morning in Somalia if there had not first been these terrible pictures on American television. First of all, do you agree with that, and do you think that's necessarily a bad thing?
I completely agree with it, Jim, and I think it's a very good thing. I think that people are responding from deep in their hearts, and I think they're responding appropriately and with a great sense of humanity. And incidentally, I think that the notion that because you can't solve all the problems in the world, you won't try to solve any of them is totally irresponsible. We have to do the best we can as a nation, and the United Nations have to do the best they can to restore civilization in Somalia. We certainly see there how fragile civilization is. There are no educated or governmental people left there to negotiate with. It's much too late for that. I think the pictures did have an effect, and I'm gratified by the response.
You share that, Clarence?
It's not too late for that. What we need to do is to restore an atmosphere in which negotiations can take place. There is authority in Bosnia. It's all Bosnia, excuse me, in Somalia. It's all local authority. It's clan leaders. It's so-called warlords. What we need to do is to work with the structure that is there, that is indigenous to that region, and build up a network whereby governing power can be restored on a national basis. It's going to take the UN to do that. If the U.S. tries to do it alone, it will be colonialism.
But let's say the warlords were so strong militarily that they did not allow camera people in there from the international news organizations, including some that have provided us footage for the last several months. Indeed. Do you believe we'd be talking about this tonight? Do you believe it would have had the impact that has then caused this decision to be made?
You've hit a troubling aspect of this to me, and that is how this is video-driven foreign policy. We would not care about Somalia now if it were not for the video on TV or not. We don't care about Sudan, where people are starving also, because we're not seeing Sudan on the evening news. Same thing with Haiti and various other countries. And we need something more substantive than just video to drive our policy.
We need more time to talk about that whole subject. I shouldn't have brought it up here. Okay, I shouldn't have brought it up here at the end. But thank you all very much again.
Again, the main stories of this Monday. U.S. warplanes began reconnaissance flights over Somalia. The first troops were reportedly preparing to land before dawn Wednesday. Relief workers said clashes between rival clans killed 48 people and wounded 50 in a town west of the Somali capital. The Supreme Court let stand a state law that requires women to get counseling and then wait 24 hours before getting an abortion. Finally tonight, an unusual look back at the Bush presidency. It comes from comedian Dana Carvey, whose imitations of President Bush on the television program Saturday Night Live made him almost as well known as the president. Last night, the comedian was the Bush's guest at the White House, and today he reviewed his own performance for the president and the White House staff.
I was staying in Lincoln bedroom last night, and I couldn't resist getting on the phone, and I called up the Secret Service as the president. Feel like going jogging tonight? In the nude. My wife and I were looking out on the lawn around midnight, and these guys were fully unclothed. Well, it's good to have... I've been studying him since yesterday, and I think I've actually... The way to do the president is to start out with Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Then you add a little John Wayne. Here we go. Let's go over the ridge. You put them together. You got George Herbert Walker Bush. That's the thing there. Now, so we've had a lot of fun over the years together. He called me at home, which is a trip, I got to tell you. To be on the phone, I was doing an interview with People Magazine. They said, hold for the president. And your heart just starts beating. Something about hold. Dana, how you doing? You know? And at first you're like, come on, who is this? Well, thought you might come out, you know, being a little nostalgic. Thought you'd come out. Been quite a year. Got a little nauseous there in Tokyo. Should have seen the look on the Prime Minister's face there. Oh, Mr. Bush, you look like you're going to bro chunk. Sort of a... No, I did use the hand. The hand, there's a lot of hands that the president used. You know, a lot of different gestures, as you know. The first one I noticed was sort of the hitchhiker, this one. Those people down over there. Doing that. And then there's 2 6 guns up here doing that thing. Then the wandering index, that fella down there. Put them together. Then the staple. We kind of got... Now, I always did this thing. I always said that the president goes, it's bad, it's bad. But you only did it once. I did it for 4 years. He did it once. So, I don't know. Do you want to come on up or? I must say. You're like, we got to bring them together.
Dana's given me a lot of laughs. He said to me on the phone, you sure you really want me to come there? And I said, yeah. And he said, I hope I've never crossed the line. And I knew exactly what he meant, and as far as I'm concerned, he never has. And the fact that we can laugh at each other is a very fundamental thing. I'm not sure on November 4th that the invitation would have gone out and Ben had the same enthusiasm, but we're shifting gears, and I think he's given us a wonderful kickoff to what I hope will be a joyous, totally friendly, very happy, somewhat nostalgic, but Merry Christmas for everybody, and we can never adequately say thanks for all you've done for us, for your country, and for the Bush family. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Good night, Jim.
Good night, Robin. We'll see you tomorrow night with an interview with former Secretary of State George Shultz. I'm Jim Lara. Thank you and good night.
Part of helping the world live and communicate better is keeping it well informed. That's why funding for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour is provided by AT&T and by PepsiCo. PepsiCo. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And viewers like you.
video cassettes of the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour are available from PBS Video. Call 1-800-328-PBS-1.
This is PBS.
Funding for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by ODS Health Plan, the group medical plan that meets the needs of more than 600,000 Oregonians by providing a broad range of medical and dental coverage and responsive service.
Hello, everybody. I'm Margie Boulay from the Oregonian. This election year made the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour an even more valuable resource than ever. It's an in-depth news source that's on the air every weekday here on the television stations of Oregon Public Broadcasting. Those of you who watch regularly already know that. If you value it, let us know right now. Just pick up the telephone and dial the numbers on your screen here in Portland. 245-2345 is the number. We also have a toll-free number on there for you. Right now, if you call us with a $150 pledge, we will send to you a copy of JFK Reckless Youth. It's the first in what is supposed to be a trilogy of biographies of the former president, and believe me, it has been extremely well reviewed. That's right now with a $150 pledge in support of the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. Again, the number's in Portland, 245-2345, or toll-free 1-800-245-2346 from anywhere else in Oregon or Southwest Washington.
And Margie, that book reminds us that this Sunday at 3 p.m. here on OPB, the American Experience series, The Kennedys, will be shown in its entirety. Hi, I'm Jim Lewis. If you're a NewsHour regular, you're probably someone who plans your television viewing very carefully. You may not have time to catch everything you'd like here on OPB or anywhere else for that matter. If that's your situation, then a VCR Plus would certainly come in handy. Now, we're offering a VCR Plus as a premium with a pledge of $150 to OPB. It's our way of saying thank you for your very generous support. And keep in mind that the numbers you need to program your VCR Plus come to each month in your copy of Oregon Focus, OPB's program guide. Give us a call at